Tristan grew up knowing more about loss than comfort. His parents were gone before he could walk, and he was raised in the halls of King Mark of Cornwall, a ruler who treated him as both nephew and treasured companion. From a young age, Tristan carried himself with quiet dignity, as if he understood that fate had taken from him, but might also give back in unexpected ways. Everyone in the kingdom admired him. He learned to ride before he learned to swim. He learned to fight before he learned to write his name. Knights respected his courage, musicians praised his kindness, and King Mark valued his loyalty more than the sharpest blade in the armory. Tristan never boasted, never demanded attention. He simply moved through life with calm purpose, trying to repay a kindness he could never truly repay, the king's love. Cornwall, however, was not a peaceful land. Enemies along its shores watched with eager eyes, and alliances fell apart as quickly as they formed. King Mark knew that one mistake could bring war. What he needed was a bond strong enough to keep the peace for a generation. That bond, everyone said, was Princess Isolde of Ireland. Isolde was known across the seas as a woman blessed with rare grace and sharper intelligence than most counselors at court. She had golden hair, a steady voice, and a way of listening that made people feel understood. More importantly, her marriage to a foreign king would unite two unsettled lands. Ireland and Cornwall could stand together instead of tearing each other apart. The problem was distance. Ireland did not casually give away their princess, not even for political peace. King Mark needed a representative brave enough to travel, trustworthy enough to negotiate, and honorable enough to return with the princess untouched and unharmed. There was no question who that representative should be. Tristan accepted the task without hesitation. When King Mark asked him to make the journey, Tristan simply bowed, as he always did, with steady respect and clear devotion. "I will bring her home," he said, not realizing how deeply those words would echo through his future. The sea crossing to Ireland tested Tristan's abilities from the start. Storms rose like dark curtains, and waves slammed against the ship as if trying to swallow it whole. The sailors trusted Tristan more than their own fear. He moved with certainty, tying ropes, guiding the crew, and encouraging them with calm words whenever the wind screamed loud enough to shake their hope. When they finally reached Ireland, Tristan felt the tension shift. Ireland was beautiful, green and alive, but it was also worry. Foreigners were not welcomed without question. People whispered, wondering why a knight of Cornwall had come unannounced. But Tristan did not approach the Irish court with arrogance. He walked in with open hands and respectful words. The queen, Isolde's mother, studied him carefully. The king tested him with difficult questions. Both were surprised by his sincerity. He explained that he came with peace in his heart and that Cornwall sought unity, not domination. His honesty impressed them more than any display of strength. They agreed to the marriage, trusting that Isolde's future in Cornwall would be built on cooperation rather than fear. Isolde herself met Tristan during the final days of preparation. She watched him as one might watch a stranger whose presence feels oddly familiar. He carried himself with quiet confidence, but not pride. His eyes were steady and his words were gentle. He appreciated that he never assumed her agreement with automatic. He treated her as a person, not a prize. Isolde felt a strange calmness in his presence, as if something in him reflected something in her. Still, she reminded herself of her duty. Her marriage was a promise to her kingdom. She would honor it even if her heart carried uncertainty. The journey home began on a cool, pale morning. The ship sailed smoothly at first, the ocean calm beneath the rising sun. On board were Tristan, Isolde, a small escort, and a carefully guarded flask, a potion made by Isolde's mother, meant for Isolde and King Mark. When shared between bride and groom, it would bind them in deep, unwavering love, ensuring that peace between their lands would last for a generation. Isolde's lady-in-waiting kept the flask close, hidden inside a chest where nothing accidental could happen. Or so she believed. But destiny does not ask permission before changing lives. Sometimes it simply waits for the smallest slip. As the ship journeyed on, Tristan and Isolde began speaking more often. Their conversations were simple at first: weather, politics, the duties of a ruler, the hopes of a loyal knight. Yet something soft and unnamed grew between their words. Neither of them recognized it. Neither of them intended it. Neither of them knew that a single moment would soon bind them in a way neither kingdom could undo. And that moment waited quietly in a flask of shimmering potion, sealed tightly, destined for hands that would never touch it as planned. The ocean carried them forward, steady and calm, unaware that 2 lives, 2 kingdoms, and countless hearts were about to change forever. The ship cut through calm waters, as if the sea itself wanted the journey to feel effortless. The wind softened, the waves settled, and the sky glowed with the kind of quiet beauty that made travelers forget how cruel the world could be. No one sensed danger. No one felt the invisible thread of fate tightening around Tristan and Isolde. On the 3rd day of the voyage, the sun burned so hot that the crew slowed their work. Sailors sat beneath shaded cloth, sharing cool water and soft laughter. Tristan stayed alert, as he always did, checking the edges of the ship, making sure everything remained steady. Isolde, unused to sea travel, tried her best to remain graceful even while battling exhaustion. The heat pressed on her shoulders, and she longed for something refreshing to drink. Her lady-in-waiting, Brangian, searched for water and found the chest containing the flask. The chest had been moved earlier to keep it away from direct sun. Brangian, tired and distracted, thought she was reaching for a simple bottle of flavored water prepared for Isolde. She lifted the flask. Its surface looked ordinary. The liquid inside shone faintly from the sunlight slipping through the wooden cracks of the ship. She did not realize what she held. She did not remember how similar the containers had looked. Her only concern was helping Isolde recover from the heat. Tristan approached at the same moment. He had been searching for something cool himself, thinking Isolde looked faint from the long days at sea. They met in the shade near the mast, and Brangian handed the flask to both of them. "Share this," she said. "You both need it." She did not notice the soft glow within the fluid. She walked away before either of them took a sip. Had she stayed, she might have seen the faint swirl of light, an unnatural shimmer that no ordinary drink should possess. Tristan unsealed the flask first, offering it to Isolde. She accepted it with a grateful smile. She lifted it to her lips and drank. The taste was sweet, strange, warm. She handed it back to Tristan without thinking. He drank as well. The moment the potion touched their tongues, the air around them shifted. It was quiet and invisible, like a door closing softly behind them. The world held its breath. Tristan felt his heartbeat change. Isolde felt her pulse tremble. For a moment, they looked at each other, confused, as if both sensed something pulling them forward. A warm rush, too gentle to fear but too strong to ignore, spread through their bodies. It wasn't desire. It wasn't impulse. It was connection, pure and deep, settling into them like a truth they had always known but never spoken. Tristan felt as if every breath he had ever taken now pointed toward her. Isolde felt as if every memory she had ever held now glowed with his presence. Neither could explain it. Neither tried to. Their eyes met, and for the first time since the journey began, silence between them felt full
instead of empty. The love that blossomed was not loud or wild. It was the kind of love that moves slowly, quietly, like sunlight spreading over a morning field. But beneath that softness was something stronger, something unbreakable, something the potion had designed to last for a lifetime. They did not speak of what had happened. They didn't need to. The change was settled, rooted in their hearts. As evening fell, the ship glowed orange beneath the setting sun. Tristan helped Isolde down the narrow steps to the cabin below. Their hands brushed, and the contact sent a quiet shock through both of them. It was gentle, warm, familiar. Isolde pulled her hand back, startled by her own reaction. Tristan stepped away, afraid of his. Inside his chest grew a feeling he had never known, a feeling too deep to speak aloud. He spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, fighting the impossible truth dawning in him. His loyalty belonged to King Mark, the man who had loved him like a son. And yet his heart now belonged to Isolde. Isolde sat by her small window, watching moonlight ripple across the ocean's surface. Her chest ached in a way she did not understand. She knew she was promised to King Mark. Her life, her kingdom, her duty, everything pointed towards a future she had accepted with grace. But now her heart moved differently. Every thought drifted back to Tristan. The next morning, Brangian discovered the mistake. She opened the chest, saw the second bottle, the real bottle of flavored water, and felt her stomach drop. Her hands trembled. She rushed across the deck and found Tristan and Isolde speaking quietly, their voices softer than before. She didn't need a sorcerer to explain what had happened. The look in their eyes told her everything. A love potion meant for two people forced to love each other had bound the wrong two souls. It was a love that should never have existed, a love that was already too deep to undo. And the ship sailed onward, carrying them towards a destiny none of them could stop.
The ship reached Cornwall on a quiet morning touched by silver mist. The harbor looked peaceful, almost welcoming, as if nothing in the world could trouble the people who lived there. But Tristan and Isolde stepped onto the shore, carrying a truth neither could escape and neither could confess. The potion had already shaped their hearts, binding them in a love so deep that duty and logic felt small beside it. King Mark greeted them with warmth that came straight from his soul. He welcomed Isolde with open arms, grateful for the alliance and genuinely honored to have her as his future queen. Isolde responded with graceful respect, but her heart hesitated each time her eyes drifted toward Tristan. He stood behind the king, silent, loyal, and struggling to hide everything the potion had awakened in him. Days passed in a blur of preparations for the royal wedding. The kingdom celebrated with music and color, unaware of the storm hidden beneath all the joy. People praised Tristan for bringing Isolde safely across the sea. They admired the princess for her gentle manner and quiet dignity. They hoped the marriage would bring lasting peace. But the closer the wedding approached, the heavier Tristan's heart felt. He avoided Isolde when he could, fearing that even a moment near her would expose everything he tried so hard to suppress. Yet fate seemed determined to keep pushing them into the same spaces, same conversations, same moments where a glance meant more than any words could carry. One afternoon, Tristan found himself alone in the royal gardens, trying to quiet his thoughts. The roses around him glowed red in the sunlight, carrying a beauty that reminded him of the hopelessness tightening inside his chest. He closed his eyes and tried to steady his breath. He didn't hear Isolde's footsteps until she stood only a few steps away. "Tristan," she said softly.
He turned, and the moment he saw her, the same warmth he had felt on the ship returned with painful clarity. She looked uncertain yet calm, as if she had accepted something difficult and was ready to face it. "I did not mean to disturb you," she said. "You didn't," Tristan answered, but the words felt heavy. He forced himself to look away before he said more than he should. For a moment neither spoke. The wind stirred the leaves, carrying a faint scent of blooming flowers between them. Isolde finally whispered, "I know what Brangian told me. About the potion. About what happened." Tristan's body tensed. He had suspected Brangian realized the truth, but hearing Isolde say it made the wound inside him deepen. "I'm sorry," Tristan said quietly. "If I had known." "You didn't, and neither did I." Isolde stepped closer, carefully, as if approaching something fragile. "Tristan, I know what my duty requires. I will marry the king. I will honor the promise between our lands." Her voice trembled slightly. "But I cannot pretend that my heart is untouched." Tristan felt the world tilt slightly. Every instant urged him to step back, to protect her, to protect the king, to protect himself. But the potion's bond had carved a truth into him that could not be buried. "I swore loyalty to King Mark. He is the closest thing I have ever had to family." "I know," she whispered. "And this, whatever I feel, it goes against everything I owe him." Isolde lowered her eyes. "But you feel it?" Tristan closed his eyes. "Yes." Silence followed, filled with the weight of all they couldn't say, all they couldn't change. When Tristan finally looked at Isolde, she looked back with an expression that carried love and sorrow woven together. "We cannot change what the potion did, but we can choose how we live with it. That may be harder than anything I have faced." Isolde nodded, and the sadness in her smile nearly broke him. "I know." Their moment ended when a servant called Isolde's name from the garden entrance. She stepped back from Tristan, the distance between them growing larger with every breath. "Goodbye," she said softly, though they both knew she did not mean forever. That evening, the royal wedding took place. The kingdom celebrated with cheers, music, and feasts that lasted late into the night. Isolde stood beside King Mark, offering him kindness and respect. She played her role perfectly, and no one suspected that her heart beat painfully in a different direction. Tristan watched from a distance. He kept his face steady and his posture noble, but inside he felt a quiet ache that refused to fade. Months passed. The kingdom grew peaceful. People admired their queen. King Mark trusted Tristan even more than before. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But beneath it all, the bond between Tristan and Isolde grew stronger, not weaker. They never acted on their feelings. They never sought moments alone. But whenever they crossed paths, the air between them shifted. Their eyes lingered longer than they should. Their words softened. Their breaths caught. Rumors began to rise, whispered by people who didn't understand what they sensed. King Mark grew uneasy, though he said nothing at first. Tristan felt the tension tightening around him like a rope. Isolde prayed that the bond would fade over time, but it never did. One afternoon, King Mark found Tristan gazing at Isolde from across the hall. Not long, not with longing, just a moment of unguarded tenderness. But it was enough. It was a soft expression, a quiet truth showing on his face, and the king recognized it with painful clarity. Doubt settled into his heart. Fear traveled beside it, and the love potion's silent mistake began to transform into a slow and inevitable tragedy. King Mark did not confront Tristan immediately. Instead, he watched. He observed their interactions with rising worry. Neither Tristan nor Isolde behaved improperly, yet something unseen lived in the space between them. The king felt it like a shadow at the edge of every room. Finally, unable to carry the weight of suspicion, King Mark ordered Tristan to leave Cornwall for a time. The command came with politeness, but Tristan understood the truth beneath it. It was exile, disguised as duty. Tristan bowed without protest. He would rather break his own heart than break the king's trust. Before leaving, he approached the garden one last time, hoping for a moment alone to steady his resolve. Instead, he found Isolde already there, waiting beneath the branches of an ash tree. Her eyes softened when she saw him. "You are leaving?" "Yes," Tristan said. His voice remained steady, though he felt anything but steady inside. "It is better for the king, better for the kingdom." "And for us?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Tristan hesitated. "It may be better for our hearts too. Distance might dull what should never have grown." Isolde's breath trembled slightly. "Distance does not always heal. Sometimes it only reminds you of what you lost." Tristan looked away. "Then this is the burden we must carry. For the king, for peace, for honor." Isolde stepped closer, not touching him, not crossing any forbidden line, but standing near enough that he felt her presence as clearly as his own heartbeat. "Promise me you will stay safe," she whispered. "I will try, and you must stay strong." She nodded, though sadness tightened her chest. "Goodbye, Tristan." "Goodbye, my queen," he said quietly. He walked away before his resolve cracked. He didn't look back because he knew that if he did, he would not be able to leave at all. Tristan traveled far from Cornwall. He fought battles for distant lands, protected villages, guided armies, and tried to bury his feelings beneath duty. But the bond he shared with Isolde never faded. It lived quietly inside him, a soft ache he carried wherever he went. Back in Cornwall, Isolde fulfilled her duties with grace. She supported King Mark, brought peace between divided clans, and comforted the people in times of hardship. She was beloved by the kingdom, admired by all who knew her. But when she was alone, she felt the same quiet ache Tristan carried across the sea. Years passed, seasons repeated. Kings and queens in other lands rose and fell. The world changed, but the love potion's bond remained unbroken. One winter, Tristan suffered a grave wound in battle. A poisoned blade cut deep into his shoulder, spreading pain through his body. The local healers tried everything, but the wound worsened. Fever consumed him. Death hovered near. In his delirium, Tristan whispered one name: Isolde. His companions, realizing the truth of his suffering, sought a ship and sent a messenger across the sea to Cornwall. He begged Isolde to come, not as a queen, not as a wife to King Mark, but as the only person who might heal Tristan's fading spirit. Isolde, upon hearing the message, felt her heart shatter like thin glass. She knew the danger. Traveling would raise suspicion. Leaving Cornwall without the king's approval could threaten peace. But none of those fears outweighed the pain of imagining Tristan dying alone. She made her choice. She left under the quiet cover of night, with only Branjean at her side. They boarded a small ship and crossed the icy sea, braving the icy winds that fought against them. Meanwhile, Tristan's condition worsened. He lay in a quiet chamber, drifting in and out of consciousness. He asked each morning whether the ship carrying Isolog had been sighted. His friends hesitated to answer, afraid the truth would crush him. One of Tristan's companions, jealous of Isolog's place in his heart, decided to lie. When Tristan asked whether Isolog's ship had appeared on the horizon, the man shook his head and said no, she has not come. The lie pierced Tristan deeper than the poison blade. By the time Isolog's ship finally approached the shore, Tristan's strength had nearly vanished. She rushed from the ship, breathless, heart pounding, racing toward the house where he lay. But she was too late. Tristan had taken his last breath moments before she arrived, whispering Isolog, his name with a longing that broke the hearts of those who heard it. Isolog reached his side and saw the stillness of his body, the peace on his face, and the truth of the loss hit her with unbearable force. She touched his hand, holding it gently, as if trying to warm it back to life. Her tears fell silently. She laid her head on his chest, the place where she had never rested before, and in her grief, her strength faded. The bond that had tied her to Tristan, created by the potion but deepened by genuine love, now pulled her into a stillness she could not recover from. She died beside him, her heart choosing the only place it ever truly belonged. When King Mark learned what had happened, sorrow filled him. He understood then the depth of the tragedy, the mistake of the potion, and the quiet suffering both Tristan and Isolog had endured. He ordered that they be buried side by side, honoring a love that destiny had twisted but never destroyed. And in time, people said that from Tristan's grave grew a tall green vine, strong and full of life, and from Isolog's grave grew another. The vines climbed toward each other, tangling together, refusing to be parted, just as their hearts had refused in life. Their story lived on, whispered across generations, a tale of love born by accident, strengthened by truth, and remembered forever.